Hey, what's going on, faithful? How are you guys all doing? Hopefully, you are staying hydrated on this hot day, the heat wave that's going on right now. But I guess much better to be in this than some other inclement weather. Well, the 49ers have been cooking up a bunch of different moves in free agency, and that has actually made things really interesting for the upcoming draft next month. And so I just wanted to get into that a little bit. So, welcome to the show. This is Niners on the Go, and I am Guy Deal. We're going to just talk about real quick, or I hope real quick, but we can expand on some topics here. But the main thing is now that the 49ers wide receiver room seems like it's pretty full, at least to me. I mean, six pieces that are signed already to that room. And I mean, I'm assuming that all those guys are going to make the team, and especially guys like Watkins and Cowing and guys that we haven't seen very much of, but were highly touted, guys that you drafted, whether it's the third, fourth, fifth round, and want to see something out of. And this is kind of a prove it year, I feel, for both of those guys, but including Ricky Pearsall, obviously. Now, Ricky had a very strange and unusual beginning to his career because of what happened getting shot in his first season, right before the start of the season. So that put him behind the eight ball in his development, but he did come on strong at the end of that year. And then last season, he started off really, really well. He was one of the best receivers in the NFL. And you just thought, this is going to be a great year. The guy has the talent. He can separate. We already knew he was a great route runner, had good hands, but I think at the NFL level, it's always nice to see how a guy is going to fit into your offense and how well he's going to pick things up and then be able to be in a flow with your quarterback. And it felt like those first few weeks, like he was in a great zone with Brock, and the timing was right. And so obviously that offseason work goes a long way to making sure that happens. But I thought that he looked really good. He looked polished. He looked like a professional receiver that could be a one or a two on a good team. Now he's obviously going to be a two this year because of the signing of Mike Evans, future Hall of Famer Mike Evans, and I think that can't be forgotten. It can't be dismissed. How good this guy is. I know he was injured last year, but I really think that some folks are looking at this as well. He's getting older and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, there's plenty of receivers that have played well into their 30s. I mean, obviously, everyone talks about Jerry Rice and some of these other guys, but as well, they talk about Jerry because Jerry's the greatest. But some other guys have had good seasons after 30 as well. And I think that the reason why there's optimism for Mike Evans doing the same thing is that Mike really hadn't gotten injured at all uh, before last season. So I definitely think that the kind of injuries that he had a clavicle. It's a very strange injury. It can happen where you break your clavicle or fracture it. It's football, so there's always going to be injuries, but that one is kind of a very strange one. It doesn't happen that often to guys. Usually, they get a lot of lower extremity stuff, and that's a lot of what happens in the NFL these days. Or if they get stuff above the waist, typically it has to do with concussion and a head injury, things of that nature, stingers, all that kind of stuff. So neck, you see a lot of that kind of stuff. But breaking your clavicle is such a weird bone. It's not something that, again, not to go into the Niners on the Go doctor hour here, because I'm definitely not a medical professional, but just in reading a lot about this stuff and analyzing it over the years, it's not something that you see very often. But so that one wasn't. It was kind of a strange one. The thing that did happen to him last year a lot, though, was the soft tissue, the hamstring. And again, this is something that just happens when there's more mileage on you, and it happens to everyone. And so, more mileage on your legs, the more mileage you put, and the strain you put on all those muscles. I like to think of those tendons as rubber bands. Basically, if you keep on pulling at them, eventually they will just kind of become not as tight over time, right? They become stretched out, and that's just part of it. And these guys are training so hard in the off season. So not only working hard in games in season, but they're training in the off season. So they're really putting their body to an extreme place with all their tendons and muscles that the regular person just doesn't do or doesn't have to do, right? So, but these are things too so these aren't injuries that are kind of reoccurring things, and it wasn't something where this guy was injury prone. So I definitely think because of that, I don't think the age is that much of a factor. I think it's always going to be a factor because of the history and everything like that, and the fact that, like I said, the mileage is there. But I definitely also feel that if you've been a guy that's been pretty healthy most of your career, and I know I mentioned Jerry, there've been other receivers as well. I think Larry Fitzgerald was a fairly healthy guy too, well into his early 30s, about to be mid 30s, and he was still a really productive player into his mid 30s. So it's not unheard of that guys can do that. I think Tim Brown was a guy that was an older receiver a bit, and he was still doing really well. Obviously, T.O. and guys like that just were physical specimen, and they were able to do it for a long, long time. So, and some guys don't, right? I think, Randy Moss wasn't the same, at 33, 34, 35 that he was at 28 through 30. I think those years, definitely there was a drop off, so there's that, of course. But like I said, because of the way that Mike is built, he is a bigger guy. He didn't have a long history with injuries before then. I think that before last season, I think that he's going to be a guy that is going to be the go-to guy on this offense. And that means that Ricky's the two, and that's not a bad thing to be a two that has to prove themselves and has to stay on the field, especially the two at receiver when you know that eventually you're going to get George Kittle back. You're going to have CMC, who's a great receiver as well. Let's not forget that. You're going to have, what I think is going to be cool is with the Christian Kirk signing, you're going to have CMC and Christian Kirk down, 5 yards from the line of scrimmage, 10 yards from the line of scrimmage. And so they're going to be doing a lot of work underneath. And this will be really cool to see because the 49ers haven't had a presence in the slot like Christian Kirk in quite some time. So it'll be really cool to have, at least as long as they can go as a healthy unit, having both Ricky on the outside with Mike Evans, and then you have Christian Kirk on the inside, and then you obviously always have the option to have CMC. Eventually, you're going to have Kittle as well. So, but my thing is, now that this receiver room is this packed, and again, I'm counting 6 guys that are signed to the team, 6 guys that for sure are going to be there, or at least be on the roster as we expect. So obviously Mike Evans, Ricky Pearsall, Christian Kirk, Demarcus Robinson, those are the 4. And then you have Jordan Watkins and you have Jacob Cowing. And I'm holding this, so I can't do the 6th finger there to show that there's 6 receivers, but that's pretty much your wide receiver room. 49ers do not have a lot of receivers that they have up on game day. You might have 3 receivers, maybe a 4th if that guy contributes on special teams, and Christian Kirk can return kicks and punts. So there's that aspect to it as well. So they may have a 4th guy just to have a guy, but really that's your receiver room. So a lot of talk about, will the 49ers get a guy like, KC Concepcion or some other guy to be that receiver at 27? I just don't see that at all, guys. I really think that it's going to be a defensive end, because I think the 49ers, even if they sign a guy like Joey Bosa and some of these other guys that are still out there, those guys are going to be signed for basically 1-year prove-it deals, at this point in the negotiation period, at this point for a guy like him that's in his 30s, in Joey. So it could happen. I'm not saying it can't happen, but you still need some help. I mean, look, Nick Bosa is awesome, but Nick's injury history is starting to also pile up. Michael is awesome. We hope he's going to be a great pass rusher, but today he's still a guy that's just such a dominant guy in the run game, and he's still an ascending pass rusher. And we'll see if he's going to be that 10-plus sack guy in the league. But until then, you can never have enough defensive end, edge rushers. And I really think the pick at 27 is Zion Young. That to me is the pick at 27. I can't see a guy that's going to be a difference maker and step in day one like that guy and what he did in the SEC. So for now, I'm going to leave it right there. But to me, the pick will be Zion Young. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and take care.